I want to tell you about not such a great experience in my life. As some of my family will say, I only worked for a living one month in my life. They will tell you I've never really worked because I've been a pastor all my life. But there was this January in 1975. It seemed that the second semester of my freshman year in college didn't start till the last day of January. So I had a full month between Christmas vacation and going back to school, and I had to work to earn some tuition money. You know how that goes. And so we had a family friend who ran a grain elevator. If you don't know what a grain elevator is, that's okay. You don't need to know that for this story. But he hired me for that month, and the first day I arrived, he introduced me to my foreman, who was a mean-spirited man. And he didn't like me right off the get-go because I was in college. He always called me college boy, not as a compliment. And he assigned me the most dangerous jobs at the grain elevator. Here's one of the jobs. When the train came in with the boxcars full of wheat, they would release them one by one, let them roll downhill, hit a switch on the train track, and that switch would take them right down to the grain elevator bin. And a bumper would come up over the train track to stop the boxcar so that it set right over the bin where the wheat was eventually going to run. Then they opened the side of the boxcar, and some of the wheat began to fall out right away, but most of it stayed in the boxcar. So they had what they called an auger, a wheat auger. It was sort of like an elongated chainsaw. It had teeth on it, and it would start spinning. And an operator would push that auger into the grain, and the grain would be pulled out into the bin. You get it? And it went back and forth like a windshield wiper, getting the grain. Yeah, okay? My job, according to this foreman, he assigned it, was to take a broom and to get in that boxcar, because some of the wheat stayed up in the corners and on the sides, and you had to brush it into that auger. Now, you had to keep your eye on the auger, because when it swung toward me, I had to jump over it so that it would not grind into my legs. And then when I was on the other side sweeping stuff back, I had to watch it, because here it comes again. I had to vault it a second time so it didn't make mincemeat out of me. I hated that job. It terrified me, and it went on all day long. And at one point, I said, I hate this stupid job. And the foreman, from the safety of the loading dock, began to cackle. He said, it'll toughen you up, college boy. That wasn't even the worst job. When that was over, I had to get on the ladder behind that same boxcar. And the foreman would drop the bumper, and the boxcar would start rolling downhill. Okay. And I had to climb up that ladder, walk across of the moving boxcar to the front of the boxcar where there was a wheel that set the handbrake. And I had to get up there and then turn that wheel, and when it engaged, it would stop the boxcar so it wouldn't roll and cause trouble down the track. Several times I slipped going up, walking that moving, lurching, careening box. Are you with me? Are you with the danger of this? I'd walk on that and think, oh my gosh, what am I doing? And one time the brake engaged before I thought it would, and it threw me over the front of that wheel, and I held on, but my torso was dangling in front of that boxcar. And the summer after I worked there, a boy about my age fell completely off the front of the boxcar and was crushed. There are some people that we should never trust with our lives. Amen? There are some people who are not worthy of our lives or our trust. That old boy wasn't. He was mean, dumb, and cruel. And those were the best things I think I could say about him. We have to be careful about in whose hands we place our lives. And we should never put our lives in jeopardy for pay, for pressure, or for promise. It's not worth it. The first time Jesus talks about his upcoming death, Peter responds by saying, I won't let it happen. It will not happen. I'll kill everybody involved if I have to. That's not going to happen. And Jesus said, you're talking like the devil now. You're not giving me the voice of God. The second time it happened, nobody said a thing. After Jesus explained the process that he was going to go through, nobody said a word. They all grieved and looked at him very, very sadly. And this is the third time. The passage we read this morning, it's the third time Jesus outlines the process of his upcoming death. He says, we're on our way to Jerusalem, as you all know. When we get there, I will be arrested. They'll have a trial that the Sadducees and the scribes run, and they will convict me, and they will sentence me to death. But they won't have the legal power to kill me, so they'll hand me over to the Romans. And the Romans will mock me, then they will beat me, and then they will crucify me. And on the third day, I'll be raised from the dead. Now, immediately after he says this, the mother of James and John, two of the disciples, she comes up to Jesus. And she completely ignores what he's just said. She denies any of that's going to happen. She says, Jesus, when you establish your military kingdom, would you put my boys second in command? She's got no clue what he just said. So here's Jesus trying to outline a horrible process, a difficult process. And the first time, Peter says, nope, that isn't happening. The second time, they all get speechless, don't say a word of support. And the third time, somebody just completely ignores it and says, that ain't going to happen. He's got to go forward with no support at all. What gave him the power to go into this process that was going to be painful, humiliating, and end in his death? What possibly gave him that power? My experience at that grain elevator pales, obviously, by comparison, but Jesus had one thing that I didn't have. If you knew you were heading into some awful situation and you could avoid it, wouldn't you avoid it? Let me ask you that again. You've all gone to sleep. If you knew you were heading into a horrible situation and you could avoid it, wouldn't you avoid it? A trip that ended in some life-changing accident, a marriage that was catastrophe from day one. Some of you look like you're familiar with some of that. An investment that ruined you economically for years. An experimentation with a drug that got you addicted and took away some of the best years of your life. A thoughtless word that you said that ruined a valued relationship, or an inattentive moment that cost you a good job. If you knew it was going to happen, wouldn't you try to do something different? The whole country's been talking about old Will Smith. Have you heard this story? Maybe you didn't. Maybe you never saw anything about it. I believe he went up and slapped somebody. Isn't that right? He slapped Chris Rock at the Academy Awards. Now, I didn't see that live. I recorded it. And so as I was watching it in the early part, there's Will Smith. He's joking and chatting and bantering with everybody. And I thought, he has no clue what's going to happen in the next hour. He has no idea that he's going to be condemned by some, mocked by some, applauded by some, but it's going to change his life, what he's going to do in just a matter of minutes. And when Chris Rock comes out, tells his first joke, and he's soaking in the attention of the arena, I thought, my goodness, this man has no idea that in 30 seconds, his whole life's going to be changed forever. If some messenger could have told those men, you're about to do something stupid, wouldn't they have changed it? In that small way, I can identify with him, just that small way. Do you know that I have preached over 1,500 sermons to you all? Can you remember about 1,000 of them right now? Over 1,500 sermons have come out of my mouth to you all about the Bible, about God, about Jesus, about my beliefs, about my life. And at least double that many Bible studies I have taught, at least 3,000, maybe more than that. And sometimes in those public things that I've lived out in front of you, I've gone off script. You probably can think of a couple of times when I went off script, see? And sometimes when I went off script, I said things that were humiliating, that injured people needlessly, that damaged people's faith. And I wish, when that happens to me, I don't know about you, when I do something really hurtful or dumb, I rehearse that over and over. I can't get away from it. The rest of the week, it's in my brain. And if I could have got a messenger from the future that would have said in about 30 seconds, you're going to say something that's totally uncalled for and dumb, I think I would have, had Kenny come up here or something. I'd avoided it. So Jesus has the message from the future. He knows what's about to come. And he knows it's going to be painful. And he knows it's going to end in his death. So why doesn't he get the men and the women that are following him and say, ladies and gentlemen, there's been a change in plans. We're going to go to Caesarea by the sea and spend a few years there till things blow over. Or, brothers and sisters, I've decided to go back, take over my dad's carpentry shop. I'm going to get married and settle down. Thank you for your service. You can return to wherever it was that I found you. But he doesn't do that. He goes right on into Jerusalem, even though he knows every step is taking him toward pain. Why does he do that? Well, he does it. He trusts the process because he has ultimate trust in the one who designed it. I did not have such trust in that idiot that ran the grain elevator. But Jesus had trust in God. And if God was asking him to do something, because he trusted God, that God was love, that it must be necessary for the world. And so he walked on into that process. Some of the most difficult times in our life produce some of the most valuable characteristics in our life. Isn't that true? Some of the most difficult times we've gone through has produced greater love, greater faith, greater patience, greater self-control, greater tolerance, greater trust, greater love. And sometimes I have seen the suffering of others has inspired people who needed an inspiration, has taught people, has healed people, has encouraged people, has become a light to others. I've seen that. Sometimes the sacrifice and the pain in our lives makes this world a better place. And it's necessary for the love of God to be shared. Never feels good. Sometimes what we go through in a moment of difficulty is preparing us for even a more difficult challenge down to come. In her memoir entitled A Strange Love of a Strange God, Esther Magnus writes of the devastating grief she felt as a teenager when her father was diagnosed with a fatal disease. It was a very rare disease. Only 100 people in all of Germany, which is where she lived, only 100 people had it. And she and her brother John made a commitment that they would pray every morning for their dad. And they would get up early and they'd go up in the attic of the home and they would pray. And then they would see each other at school during the day, and they had a signal, which meant let's go to this private room that nobody was usually in. And they went there and they prayed some more. Now, Esther says that the longer she prayed, the angrier she got at God. I don't know if you've ever had that. The longer she prayed, the angrier she got at God, because her father's health just kept deteriorating. But she noticed in her brother John that he seemed to be relaxed. He seemed to be at peace. He seemed to be even joyful at times. He seemed to just have this love and grace. She did not understand it. When her father died, she decided she no longer believed in God. And she made it public. She made it clear. I don't believe in any God that would take my father. But her brother continued to pray. He continued to follow that disciplined prayer life, and she got mad at him. She just thought he was a dope. And then at the age of 23, her brother was diagnosed with the very same disease that took her father's life. And her brother said, well, it's going to be okay, sister. And she blew up at him. She said, how can you still believe in a God that going to take the two most important men in my life away? And he said, because in all those prayer times, I just came to feel so much love. I just felt surrounded by love. I felt the love inside me and around me. And I was just so filled with love, the love of God, the strange love of this strange God. He said, and it kept me close to God, and it kept me close to Dad. And when Dad died, I still felt we were together in the same love. And when you walked out on me and got angry and left God behind you, said, I still felt love. I felt we were connected in love. And when I die, sister, it's going to be that love that keeps us together. That's going to keep us together. It's going to keep us united to God, to Dad, to one another. It's that love. It's all we got, the strange love of the strange God, but it's enough love. When difficulties happen to us, they always eventually, maybe not at the beginning, but eventually they enlarge our love. They let us live in God's love to a greater degree. They allow us to share that love with others. We have a testimony to give. It's not easy, but it ultimately is good. You got to be careful about whose hands you put your life in. A lot of people want it, don't they? Your job wants a good piece of it. Sometimes family wants all they can get. Sometimes others demand it. Mark Brazetis wrote a very interesting little essay called Ocean City. You ever been to Ocean City? How many would wish you were right there right now? Okay, Ocean City. Mark Brazetis, he and a buddy, they got to buy a game called Jacob's Ladder one summer, 1981. They were both just teenagers. Somehow they got their hands on a Jacob's Ladder, and they took it to Ocean City, and they got permission to put it up on the boardwalk. And they charged people to go Jacob's Ladder. Now, if you don't know what Jacob's Ladder is, you've probably seen one. It's a rope ladder that's attached to the ground, and then it goes up about 15 feet, and there's a bell up there. And what they tell you is pay me the money, and you get 3 chances to ring that bell. And people take the money. And if you ring the bell, Kenny's not doing it. If you ring the bell, you get one of those alluring prizes, maybe some headphones or something. And so they got all that out there. And then there's all sorts of other games on the boardwalk. Have you been down there? A lot of attractions to spend your money. Everybody wants your money. And you're not unlimited in money, are you? I mean, some of you may be independently wealthy, but I don't know. And so you've only got so much in kids. You've got your allowance there. So they got to get the money out of your pocket. So here's what they do. They say, this is so easy. You're going to win the headphones like this. Look, I'll show you. And they just scramble up and ring the bell and come down. What customers don't know is that Mark Brazetis put in long hours testing and learning exactly where to put his feet on that rope ladder so it didn't flip on him and drop him on the mat. A novice can never do it. They're never going to do it. So all day long, he'd go, look, how easy. Bing, give me your money. People lay that money down. They'd go about 3 rungs and fall all over. And he'd take their money. There's all sorts of people that want our lives, our energy, our talent, our faith, our trust. Jesus is calling us to say, don't put your life in any other hands but God. Anything else is a fool's errand. I should have walked off that grain elevator hour 1, don't you think? You don't care. I should have never put even 10 minutes of trust in that guy. But we can put our whole life trusting the hands of God. And don't forget the ending of what he said. The disciples did. All they remembered was that he was going to get crucified. They forgot the ending of it. When we follow in Christ's footsteps and we put our life in the hands of God, it can get rough, but what's the ending? Did you remember the ending? On the 3rd day, he said, I will be raised. God will keep that promise to us as well. If we follow God through it all, one day we shall wake up in eternity, surrounded by the love that has guided us all our lives. We can trust the process of our lives because we can trust the one who designed it. Amen.